following views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of the Shadow Talk Radio Network, its management, staff, or any affiliates.
And you're live.
From the beautiful city of Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to the Dr. William Lester Show, formerly Dimension X, your weekly foray into the paranormal and the unexplained. I am your host, Dr. William Lester, and I thank you for joining me on this excursion into the unknown. This show can be heard each Saturday from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time right here on the Shadow Talk Radio Network. Well, folks, I think that spring is trying to come. It's funny because I spent a little while earlier today. I spent a couple hours doing some fishing, believe it or not, because we were in the 70s today. And that might not be, that important piece of news, except for the fact that I had snow on the ground just 3 days ago. And we had a little winter weather come through the South. And, here we are just a couple of days later, and it's warm enough to go out and try to see if the fish are biting. I know we have a lot of listeners in and around the South. And, of course, right now in the ATL, we're at 61 degrees, so it's feeling good. We're at 67 degrees in Birmingham and 62 in Jacksonville, 65 in Nashville, Tennessee. New Orleans is checking in at 69, so it's real warm down there, Big Easy. Orlando's at 65 degrees, 62 up in Columbia, SC. And out at Little Rock, it is a balmy 71 degrees. Now, we will continue on today with our world-renowned segment of Today in History. This is the March 7th edition. This is the 66th day of the year 2009, which means, of course, that there are 299 days left in this year. Reminder, everybody, daylight savings time begins at 2 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. Sunday. Clocks move forward 1 hour. Fall back, spring ahead. Today's highlight in history: on March 7th, 1965, a march by civil rights demonstrators was broken up in Selma, Alabama, by state troopers and a sheriff's posse. On this date in 1793, during the French Revolutionary Wars, France declared war on Spain, proving that they can walk and chew gum at the same time. In 1850, in a 3-hour speech to the U.S. Senate, Daniel Webster endorsed the Compromise of 1850 as a means of preserving the Union. In 1876, on this day, Alexander Graham Bell received a patent for the telephone. In 1926, the first successful transatlantic radio telephone conversations took place between New York and London. On this date in 1936, Adolf Hitler ordered his troops to march into the Rhineland, thereby breaking the Treaty of Versailles and the Locarno Pact. Similarly, in a related area, on this date in 1945, U.S. forces crossed the Rhine River at Rimingen, Germany, using the damaged but still usable Ludendorff Bridge. In 1981, anti-government guerrillas in Colombia executed kidnapped American Bible translator Chester Allen Bitterman, whom they accused of being a CIA agent. 10 years ago, 1999, movie director Stanley Kubrick, whose films included Dr. Strangelove, A Clockwork Orange, and of course 2001: A Space Odyssey, died in Hertfordshire, England at the age of 70. 5 years ago, on this day, 14 Palestinians were killed in the deadliest Israeli raid in Gaza in 17 months. Also on this day, 5 years ago, actor Paul Winfield died at the age of 64. 1 year ago on this day, on the heels of a gloomy report that 63,000 jobs were lost in February 2008, President George W. Bush said Quote, "It's clear our economy has slowed," as he tried to reassure an anxious public that the long-term outlook was good. Pulitzer Prize-winning author Samantha Power, who was acting as an advisor to then-Senator Barack Obama, resigned after calling rival Hillary Clinton a, quote, "monster." Leon Greenman, the only Englishman sent to Auschwitz concentration camp, died in London at the age of 97. Today's birthdays: comedian Alan Seuss is 83, photographer Lord Snowden is 79, TV personality Willard Scott is 75, auto racer Janet Guthrie is 71, actor Daniel J. Travanti, remember him from Hill Street Blues, 69 years old. Former Walt Disney Company Chief Executive Officer Michael Eisner is 67. Rock musician Chris White from the Zombies. Remember Time of the Season, Tell Her No, and She's Not There. The Zombies. Chris White, 66 years old today. Also, rock singer Peter Wolf is 63. Rock musician Matthew Fisher from Procol Harum. Remember that? Whiter shade of pale. He is 63. Football Hall of Famer Franco Harris, who can forget Franco, is 59 years old. Football Hall of Famer Lynn Swann is 57. Rhythm and blues singer, musician Ernie Isley, the Isley Brothers, 57 years old. Actress Donna Murphy turns 50 today. Tennis Hall of Famer Yvonne Lindell is 49. Rock musician Randy Guss, 42. Actress Audrey Marie Anderson is 34 years old today. And our thought for today comes from American author James Baldwin, 1924 to 1987. And he says, quote, "The most dangerous creation of any society is that man who has nothing to lose." And amen to that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this segment or this installment of Today in History, March 7th, 2009. In a moment, we're going to bring on our guest, Mr. Craig Campobasso, excuse me. And he is going to tell you a fascinating story. He has actually a background in Hollywood, in film and casting, etc. But he's also going to share with us some information about a book that he wrote. And in a moment, Mr. Craig Campobasso.
Hello?
Hello there. Are you there, sir?
I'm here.
All right. I just wanted to go ahead and bring you on. I gave you a little bit of an intro, but I wanted to share a little bit more of information with the audience about you. So just kind of hang with me, and I will proceed to embarrass you a little bit on the air by sharing some of your credentials.
Okay.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Mr. Campobasso on the air with me now. He is, of course, a 32-year veteran of the film industry. He began as an actor while working for Kaleidoscope Films, a production company that created teasers, trailers, and TV spots for A-list films. Next, Craig began to work for Dino and Raffaella De Laurentiis and David Lynch on their production of Dune, which is, of course, the science fiction, or based on the great science fiction novel by Frank Herbert, published in 1965. Craig learned from the master storytellers, working on the entire production for 4 years. He also worked on Conan the Destroyer simultaneously with Dune, both of those films being for Universal Pictures, and shot in Mexico City. He also worked behind the scenes on Total Recall, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Craig fell in love with the casting process, and Raffaella De Laurentiis put him to work as a casting assistant on her next big picture, Taipan, starring Barry Brown and Joan Chen. After that, he moved to Amblin Entertainment, familiar name, as a casting associate for Steven Spielberg. Maybe you heard of him. on his television show, Amazing Stories. Craig's been an active casting director and acting instructor for over 24 years. He picked up his first Emmy nomination for David E. Kelley's Picket Fences and has worked on such movies as Pizza with Bullets, Badlands, Sky Captain, and The World of Tomorrow, which I enjoyed immensely. Crusader, Tremors 3, Back to Perfection, The Godson, The Elite, and Face of Terror, starring Ricky Schroeder, of course, from NYPD Blue. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Craig Campobasso, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you? I want to know that guy. Who is he?
Yeah, well, I thought you know, I got this dossier. It had your name on it. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, so wow, you know. So long over all those years, you know, you go, wow, I forgot I did all that.
Absolutely. So, you know, would you, when you hear the term Hollywood insider, would you put yourself in that category?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah. You know, because, you know, a lot of people who are, you know, would-be actors, would-be screenwriters and directors, etc., you know, having hopes and dreams of stardom, you know, and success, ultimately all want to make it to Hollywood. So, you know, and I know, you know, I'm in Atlanta, and, you know, we have a pretty vibrant, small independent film culture, if you will. What would you say to those people, you know, who are trying to climb the ladder? Obviously, there are moments of disappointment and rejection. What would you say to those people as a Hollywood veteran?
Well, the thing is that there aren't moments of rejection. There's just pure rejection, you know, and that's how it all starts off. The people who usually come to town and make it, or, you know, the statistics are probably 1 in a million. And a lot of that has to do with being at the right place at the right time. For instance, when I was working on Dune, Jane Jenkins, who's a huge casting director, you know, her and her partner Janet Hershenson, you know, they did the Angels and Demons that's coming out, and the Da Vinci Code, and a lot of big movies. And I was a PA on Dune. I was very young, and that's where I got to learn everything. And but for instance, Kyle MacLachlan, there was Jane's casting associate, Elizabeth Lustig, went around the entire United States in all the big cities, and she found Kyle MacLachlan in Seattle and brought him here. And you know, the rest is history. Val Kilmer was going to play Paul Muad'Dib. Up until that point, he was just you know, becoming a little well known at that time. So, you know, there are those great stories. I spoke today to an actress I hired on Amazing Stories way back when, and now she's starring on Del Shore's show, and that's, the name escapes me. The one with Olivia Newton-John and all of that. And, you know, she said, my God, it only took me 30 years, but I got here, you know. So, but, you know, there really is no rhyme or reason to it, but that for people who really want to act, what I would say to you first off is to go to acting school. And if you really enjoy acting, then go and learn as much as you can. You know, an easy reading would be to pick up a book on Stanislavski, who created method acting way back when, and then Lee Strasberg and Sandy Meisner took his teachings and created the Actors Studio many moons ago. You know, and you know, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. You know, it's amazing. You know, the Actors Studio was so touted, and there were so many, you know, of our big giant movie stars started off there. And to think that somebody like Marilyn Monroe, who wanted to learn more and know more, actually went when she was famous and sat with actors coming up. and you know, in a room like that. Could you imagine?
No, I mean, because
I mean,
a celebrity of her stature,
yeah.
you know,
But that just shows how sweet and humble she was, and how much she really wanted to learn. You know, so I would say, you know, to definitely, you know, go to acting class as much as they can, but to also just start off doing some extra work, and so that they get familiar with the set. You know, I started doing extra work when I was a teenager, when I was around 15, 16. You know, and I was going to acting school, and I was, you know, going on auditions and all of that. And I tell you, it took me 3 years to figure out just how to audition. There's such a process to it, you know. There really is. There's so. I remember a friend of mine many years ago. She said, "Oh, acting is so easy," and I said, "Then I said it's so. I said then it could be for you. Why don't you come to an acting class?" She came, she picked up the sides, she got up in front of the class, and she froze like a deer in the headlights. She goes, "Oh my God, this is so hard," you know, because there's so many things going on. So that's why you really have to go to acting school to really, you know, to just familiarize yourself with, you know, all the lingo and, you know, everything that goes along with it. So,
you know, when you mentioned Marilyn Monroe, I went through a little mental segue because I'm a big fan of, you know, I guess what today they call classic movies, stuff you see on, you know, TCM or et cetera. Going back through the years, through the decades, you know, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, as far back as your, you know, knowledge of Hollywood extends, who would you point to back in time as actors and actresses that stand out in your mind? You know, even today, when you look at some of these old movies and you go, "Oh my God, what a performance!" Who are some of your all-timers?
Well, I think, you know, definitely Marilyn Monroe, definitely James Dean, Paul Newman, absolutely. Sure. You know, and somebody who I've just adored forever is Sidney Poitier. And, you know, and it's funny because what I do is I watch movies all the time at night when I'm not working, because, you know, and sometimes I go, okay, well, now I need to look at an old movie, and I'll go through a phase where, you know, I'll go through all of Cary Grant's movies, and you just go, you know, from beginning to end, and you see, I mean, he was incredible from the get-go. You know, I mean, what timing and what presence and all of that. And I'll tell you, when you meet actors that have a presence, I remember I met Warren Beatty once at his sister Shirley's house at Christmas time. And, you know, I had always thought he was terrific, but in person, he has a persona and an energy field around him that just radiates movie star. You know, the same is with Burt Reynolds.
Really?
Yeah, and because I worked with him, he directed one of the TV shows I was doing, and got to tell you, he's a lovely man, and done a couple of movies with him since. But he just has the same energy field, you know, that just radiates. And when you see even an unknown walk into a room, and when they're radiating that, you just know it's going to go. You know, you just know their career is going to take off.
You know, I don't think, of course, you know, I don't know a lot about, you know, how many awards he's won or how much recognition. I mean, obviously he's a tremendous celebrity, but something strikes me about Burt Reynolds, that he's never really received the accolades for being the level of actor that he actually is.
Yeah.
He's always, you know, he's done a lot of roles where, you know, a lot of guy's guy, a man's man role, a lot of these type of things. Been in, you know, especially in his younger days when he was did a lot of action films and so forth. And it just strikes me that he never really received the type of recognition as a superb actor.
And he's a man that has impeccable comedic timing, and he's a wonderful director too, by the way. You know, he just knows. So yeah, it's true. There's a lot of actors, you know, that don't get the recognition, and you know, but he's sure one. You know, but he's also a good person. You know.
I thought the same. I felt the same way about Clint Eastwood. Now, I mean, I think, you know, now Clint Eastwood has shown a lot of his directing abilities, but I'll tell you, you know, growing up, you know, you saw Clint Eastwood, you know, either, you know, in the spaghetti westerns, or, you know, later on in his Dirty Harry persona. But I came to realize, I said, you know what, this guy's a heck of an actor. You know, and I never would have attributed skillful acting to Clint Eastwood prior to that kind of personal revelation. You know what I mean? I was looking at him and said, man, he's a very good actor, you know. And so today I kind of put him in that category. You know, he's an older gentleman now, and he's not going to be jumping off buildings, but he is a tremendous actor. Well, not only in all the spaghetti westerns, you know, which were Sergio Leone's, you know, who everything was about, you know, the long look, you know, the long take, the you know, the passing, you know, between the good guy and the bad guy. That is some of the hardest acting to do. You know, is to just do something with a look, and you know, because really what they're doing is they're vibrating the soul through their you know, through their facial expressions, through their eyes, whatever's going on, you know, in the inner turmoil or whatever the character is going through. And that's some of the toughest acting, but you know what, that's where he started, and he pushed himself, and my God, look at him now. You know? You know, this is a little bit of trivia. I bet you know it because you're a Hollywood guy. I think the first feature film, do you know the first feature film where he shows up on camera, where he gets any FaceTime? No, I don't know that. It's 1956. And it is the sequel. It is The Revenge of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And he's the lab assistant. Amazing. He's the lab assistant who has misplaced one of the lab rats, and it turns out that it's in the pocket of his lab coat. And he's got about 90 seconds worth of FaceTime in that film, and I believe that is the first feature film where Clint Eastwood gets some FaceTime. Wow. Well, you know, when I was at Universal working on Dune and Conan, my office was right next door to Jack Arnold, who is the director of Creature from the Black Lagoon. Oh, my goodness. And he did all those Universal movies, The Incredible Shrinking Man, and as a matter of fact, in his office, he had the actual head of the creature in a glass box. Really? And so, and then on the other side of my office was Irving Talley, who was the producer of The Munsters, which was my favorite show. And so what I did is, those guys were early risers. They were in between 6 and 7, and, you know, nobody in our office got in till 9. So I would go in at 7 o'clock every morning and go and sit with either Jack or Irving over coffee and listen to all their great stories of the studio. And oh my God, it was just such an incredible, you know, mind-blowing experience to just soak up all that stuff, you know. You know, that's one of those Black Lagoon, you know, what they used to call the Gill Man. That little I think there were 2 or 3 movies they did, but those are one of the few movies from that era that when you sit down and watch them today, they do not date themselves. They are still very creepy, very effective, and they come across as more than an old sci-fi flick. I mean, they're very good, and they stand up now 50 plus years on. That's right. That's right. And that comes from good direction and good writing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I know that we have a little atypical angle, if you will, to work in. And let me ask you this. Before you had the experience that we're going to get in when we come out of the break,
Right.
did you have any interest or knowledge or any proclivity at all in the area of a subject like the paranormal or UFOs?
I had absolutely zilch, zero. I will tell you, I was when I was working for Kaleidoscope. That was in 1977, the year I graduated high school, and we went to one of the very first screenings of Star Wars.
Oh.
And because we would go and then we'd interview the people for the TV spots afterwards, and I fell asleep. And it's not, let me tell you, I'm a huge fan of the Star Wars films now, but I'm just saying back then, it was, none of it really piqued my interest or anything. And even when I was working on Dune, I didn't even know what Dune was when I got the job. I didn't even know, that the De Laurentises were huge producers. I didn't even know who David Lynch was. That's how young and naive I was.
So Frank Herbert, and that was totally off your radar.
Totally off my radar, knew nothing about it, and, I actually turned the job down. They called me on a Friday and said, we hear good things. You don't even have to interview. Can you start on Monday? And I said, well, I just quit Kaleidoscope. I don't want to do PA work anymore. I wanted to try and get something better going. And, and being young and foolish, this was back then, I think my paycheck was probably, but when they took taxes out, like $150 or $200. And I think I spent most of it that weekend, and I was like,
sure.
Oh man, what am I going to do now? And then, and then Monday rolled around, and they called me again, and they said, are you sure? And I said, okay.
Let's hold the audience up there, because this is a great place because to segue back into the Dune story and then to some of your experiences. I can't wait to hear this myself. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight is Mr. Craig Campobasso. Again, a 32-year veteran in the film industry, but he's got a story to tell that's going to knock your socks off. So please stay tuned to hear what he's got to say. This is the Dr. William Lester Show. I am, strangely enough, the show's namesake, Dr. William Lester himself, and we are on the Shadow Talk Radio Network. We will return to the program after these messages.
UFO studies, ancient mysteries, paranormal studies, cryptozoological sciences, demonology, extraterrestrial archaeology, temporal sciences, conspiratorial studies. These courses and more can be found at the Institute of Metaphysics. From the mysteries, knowledge. instituteofmetaphysics.com.
Hi, Michael Old Hip Johnson, Paranormal Outsider, here with a question. Are you a fan of ghost, history, horror writers, mediums, TV celebrities, demonologists, and EVP specialists? What would you give or do to meet and greet top TV celebrities such as Chris Fleming, Patrick Burns, Chip Coffey, Tiffany Johnson, Dave Schrader, John Zaffis, the cast of Scared TV, Adam Bly, Barry Taft, Stacey Jones, the Constantinos, Scotty Roberts, Vince Wilson? Well, before you give up on that new piece of investigative hardware, check out Northeastern Paranormal Investigations Phenomenology 101, March 26th through the 28th in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This 3-day event includes a reception to meet and greet the celebrities, lectures, vendors. Limited tickets are available for investigations of 3 haunted locations. in Gettysburg you won't want to miss. Still not convinced? What if I told you we have got special rates for the Eisenhower Hotel in historic Gettysburg, located on the third day battlefield? Go to www.northeasternparanormal.org for all the ticket information and tell them Old Hip sent you.
Spit my life, wonder what you do. 4 years of college and I haven't got a clue. I want the money, but I don't want the job. What I really wanna be is a rock and roll star. You may say I won't get very far, but I'm fixed on being a rock and roll star. I know it sounds cheesy and it's just a pipe dream, but I'd really like a ride on that gravy train. Is life on the road? Give my regards. Going out to make it as a rock and roll star. You may say I won't get very far, but I'm bent on being a rock and roll star. Here comes the man, says he's based in LA. He's got a big contract if I sign my life away. 100 mil if I work very hard. And for the rest of my life I'll be a rock and roll star. You may say I won't get very far, but here I stand, a rock and roll star. Rock and roll star. Rock and roll star. Rock and roll star. Rock and roll
Ah, yes, to be a rock and roll star. Or Hollywood star, for that matter. A lot of people head out west to be rock and roll stars and movie stars. 9 out of 10 end up where they started from. But ladies and gentlemen, tonight my guest is Mr. Craig Campobasso, veteran of the film industry, casting, script writing, etc. I wanted to let the audience know, of course, they could go up and visit Craig's website online. It is www.craig at Campobasso. I'm going to spell that out for you. CRAIG, CAMP as in Peter, OB as in baseball, ASSO.com, and check out what he's got going on. If you want to contact me, you can go to the show site at Dr. William Lester Show. Just write it all out. Dr. William Lester, Dr. William Lester Show.synthesite. That's SYNTHASITE, synthesite.com. Dr. William Lester Show.synthesite.com, and contact me. And of course, as always, the Shadow Talk Radio Network can be found at www.shadowtalkradio.com. Now, Craig, before the break, I asked you if you had any leanings in the area or the issue of things like the paranormal and UFOs, and you said decidedly no. In fact, you even committed the blasphemy of dozing off during Star Wars.
No, and that comment was only just to show you how unawake I was.
Exactly. I mean, and because that struck me because with all of the explosions and fight scenes and laser guns going off, you really had to be just totally disassociated from what was going on.
Completely.
So, obviously, when people have no interest in a topic and then subsequently have great interest in that topic, it's always because of an event or a series of events that one might classify as life-changing. So let's bring the audience in on our little secret.
Well, so there was 4 years of Dune, and then there were 2 seasons of Amazing Stories, and I believe the final season was in 1986. Mm-hmm. And when that show ended, that's when my own Amazing Story began, and. When I was a kid, I remembered that I could actually see and sense energies in a room, and it did freak me out a little bit, but I never voiced it or, said anything to anyone. And I did have one major experience when I was a boy that I do remember. I was about 10 years old. I was sitting in the bathtub, and all of a sudden I went into a catatonic state, looking in the nozzle, seeing my reflection. And I went far deep into the universe, into the heart and the light of the universe, and all the questions of how did we get here, all those things that come much later on in life. Who are we, all those questions. And then I remembered just sort of snapping out of it and then going back to normal. But, anyway, after Amazing Stories, what would happen is I would have what I call waking dreams. It's where you're in a dream, but you wake up in the dream. It's where your soul travels somewhere else and is actually having an experience. And you have to remember that experience is the catalyst of the soul. It could be in your spiritual body or it can be here in your physical body. So I was traveling to places, and when I would just see this very beautiful woman with long blonde hair, and but her dress was like made of beads of light, and light came from her skin, and it was just amazing. And I was never afraid, and I would just look at her, and I would just sort of feel her energy, and anyway, and that went on for quite some time, and then all of a sudden, 2 very tall beings with these incredible robes and they have very long, elongated heads. You can see their pictures on my website, by the way. I had an artist do all the renderings. And they started to join her, and then that went for a while. And the one thing that I can say about it is that they felt familiar to me. Uh-huh. And so that process went on for months and months. And then I would wake up again in the dream. I would see them in the waking dream, and then I would open my eyes, and their astral bodies would be standing in my bedroom. Mm. So it progressed to that, and they would just, and every time I saw them, all I felt was the most unbelievable, unconditional love that you could ever experience. It was just mind-boggling. So this was sort of like a getting to know you kind of situation, as now that I can assess it all these years later. And then I actually started having experiences with them where the three of them one time fed me this golden light, and my body just kept rotating and floating. And this golden light was so incredible going into my body that, I woke up and I just felt like I was enveloped in the arms of God. That's the only way I can explain it.
Well,
And-
let me back up a little bit, because this is a tremendous experience. Did you go especially early on in this experience? Did you go through a situation where you said, "Oh no, I'm imagining this," or this is some kind of hallucinogenic, what have you, were you like, okay, this is happening, and this is actually, literally happening? Because I think a lot of people kind of go through a process of questioning whether or not what they're experiencing is really what, is this a waking dream or whatever? Did you go through that, or did you immediately feel like you were having an actual experience?
Well, that's such a great question, because yes, I did. Back then I just kept thinking, well, maybe I am just imagining it. But every time I would have those thoughts, another one would occur the very next night, so that I would get used to it. And then I was thinking, okay, well, is this a reoccurring dream? Is this what is this? But the feeling attached to it was so spiritually elating. I was, I don't know how I met, there was a metaphysical counselor who was a psychic also, and they called her the human radio to the stars. She was quite mind-blowing. She did a lot of work for all the giant corporations and everything like that, and so I made a session to go and see her. I wasn't going to ask her about this. I was just going to see what came out of her mouth. And the first words out of her mouth were, "You are someone who I deem is extraterrestrial in their vibration, and the visitations from these beings from other worlds you are seeing is actually happening."
Whoa.
Okay, that blew me away right away. She had my attention.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah. I mean, if that doesn't snap you, that nothing else will. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And and she went on to say that that I was to allow these energies to work through me, because they were spiritual energies coming through. And after the experience I told you with the being fed the golden light, I went into a phase for about 8 months that I call earth initiation, which is I felt like every cell in my body was awake. I walked down the street, I could see the beauty of each and every soul inside of every body. I could see the creation behind a ladybug. I could see the creation behind eating a piece of fruit and the flavor that fruit had. I can't explain it. It was just so mind-boggling. But I cried for 8 months straight, anywhere from 3 to 12 times a day, because I couldn't believe how beautiful everything actually was, and the beauty behind the creation of every living thing.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. I wish I could bottle that and drink it every day.
Right. So, okay, take us, just kind of take us through the continuing, as this thing unfolded. Did you ever feel that you were taken anywhere, or a lot of people, when we have these conversations, of course, the generic term is abduction. Of
Right.
course, that's a subjective term, because some people would not, categorize it as an abduction, being, necessarily taken against your will. But many people with these type of experiences often relate to being inside what they feel is a ship, or some other place, supposedly, a vehicle of some sort. Of course, a lot of these experiences are accompanied by traditional UFO sightings. How much of that played a part in these experiences for you?
Well, my experiences, there's never, with these beings, nothing has ever been negative. It's only been, perfectly unconditional love and actually being, it's like I felt I was being spoon-fed spirituality of a cosmic nature from them, because I kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And but yes, as it progressed, I actually would recall being on ships and talking to other people. I would see some of my other friends in real life on the ships, and then I would ask them in real life if they remembered it, and some of them did and some of them didn't, but some of them woke up later on. Or I would see these big giant motherships up in the sky, not literally, but always in these dream states. That kind of thing. And the abduction thing, that's a negative thing. That's being done by, those renegade little grays who.
Okay, well, let's go there. Let's talk about, that issue. During these experiences, was it ever communicated to you about different types of entities doing these different types of things? Because if we are to believe, what's being, communicated by experiencers, that there are different groups carrying out different types of activities. So, what have you gleaned?
Yeah. Well, well, number one, no, the ones that I had contact with never. I asked, believe me, I did ask, but
okay.
The answer I always got back is that it is more complicated than could be explained to you. But over all these years, I have met many other people who have actually gone physically on ships with the highly spiritual beings from various places around this giant universe of ours. And, and they had been given those kinds of information, so from what I understand is the ones who were doing the abductions, they came in the time of Eisenhower, and they exchanged information with him. All this is on the internet, I'm not saying anything new. You can go on the internet and learn all about this. But the thing is the powers that be in the universe cannot interfere. They can interfere if they come in and they try and take our planet over, but if they're invited in, like they were, then they can't do anything, because that's the path of this planet that, that's going to go forward, because those powers that be chose it. There
is not much of a chance of, for lack of a better term, being taken over, because you're saying they're just not going to let that happen, or is it, kind of like a prime directive thing? You see what I'm saying? Because, if they say to you, "Oh well, it's too complicated, we can't get into it." Well, that's a little unsettling. And I guess maybe, sometimes when a child asks us a question and we really don't want to, take the time to go in depth, that's what we usually say. Well, it's a little complicated. You'll understand that when you're older. And so it certainly infers that there's a lot going on.
Well, there's a lot going on, and you have to remember, mine were not physical contacts. Mine were spiritual contacts, and, with these beings in their astral bodies, and it's not like we sat there and had long conversations. Things were transferred spiritually, consciously from their minds into mine, and my mind had to, over time, process the information that they put in there.
Mm.
You know, and processing that information is what I ended up writing the book about, was, you know, the information that was coming through me. And that's nothing new. A lot of the other people who have actually gone on the ships and have spent time on the ships for many, many years, they have the same experience when they're not even with them. They get the spiritual downloads from them. You know, we call them downloads because all of a sudden you just feel the consciousness just, you know, coming in, and then it's like this, your own little personal orb that you can ask questions to, and sometimes you'll get the answers, you know.
Let me ask you this. Before this experience, where were you in terms of spirituality? Did you have a religious belief? Did you have any kind of perspective on things apart from this world and this existence?
Well, I really never thought, I mean, I always thought life existed elsewhere. I never gave it that much thought, you know, beforehand. Spiritually, I was raised sometimes Catholic. I did go to parochial school for 3 years until I begged my parents to put me in public school because that's where all my friends were.
Right, no moss, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I got hit with the ruler a couple of times.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
They did that in those days, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but I, you know, but as I grew into my own self, my religious belief was always based on just what love is, and to live your life in love and non-judgment. You know, because that's what I believe God is love and non-judgment.
Did these entities communicate with you about spiritual development or spiritual events, I guess you'd say, on this planet? Because, of course, when you look back in our history, there have been individuals in history, we all know who they are, who have brought spiritual messages of one kind or another. But, of course, you know, as human beings, and, of course, this is on my subjective take on it. You know, what we have done is we basically created religions around these figures. But did they communicate anything to you about that on the earth? Were they aware of these spiritual messages and you know, the meaning and the importance and where humanity was, etc.? You know, because you look around the world today, and I maintain, you know, we're not all that different than people who lived hundreds or thousands of years ago. Many of us have embraced, you know, a particular religious belief, and we dig in, and then everything becomes a question of us against them.
Well, you know, this is how I categorize that, and I hate to even put it in the category, but there are those of us who are awake, and there's those of us who are asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones who are spiritually awake see the beauty in everything. They see unconditional love, and they also do not judge other people. So, you know, and every religion has some kind of judgment or something going on with it, and and it depends on the individuals who are actually in. Some do, some don't. It's just like everything in the world, you know, and it's, you know, when somebody does something wrong, they pick that one person and they try and make that one look bad, or that religion look bad, or this or that. You know, and the thing is what this whole world is about freedom of choice. And if you want to choose a path, you know, of religion and do something like that, I mean, there was a period of time, too, when all of this was happening to me, that I actually would wake up every morning and see and experience a past life.
Mm.
You know, and I saw myself as once I was a little Tibetan Buddhist monk, you know, and I had a lot of very nice, normal, you know, kind of life. And, you know, I always say I wasn't Mark Anthony or anyone.
Right, because that's
Everybody I know, oh, well,
Yeah,
you know, every
I mean,
woman you know is Cleopatra.
She was Cleopatra, then Helen of Troy,
I know.
and so that is a it's
But-
remarkable that so many people were Julius Caesar and Napoleon,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
but you were a
But,
run-of-the-mill Tibetan monk. Okay.
But anyway, you know, again, you know, everything, the whole process of what's going on in the spiritual upliftment and all of that on the planet is a lot of what the book is about, and I ended up doing it through a storyline and just saying that it's inspired by a true story, because I have to tell you, I sat down, I did not write this book.
Okay.
And I can tell you several reasons why, because it was like sitting down and reading a book, and I was being given words. I didn't even know what they meant or how to spell them, and they would spell them for me. And then I'd look in the dictionary and I'd go, damn, that's good, you know? And, you know, and in the beginning I wasn't a good writer. I started writing about my experiences as they started happening when I was, you know, 26, going into 27. And I wrote a whole book. It was 450 pages. It took me, you know, several years to do. And then one of the beings that I told you about, his name is Father Jacoba, and when he came to me, I had just been to Mount Shasta, and I had a very incredible experience with the I Am, you know, the God I Am, and had an amazing visitation where my body literally, I literally saw my body, felt my body leave my sleeping body, and I was up, and my body was divided into male and female, and the I Am was speaking, and then fused me back and put me in. And when I woke up the next morning, I had a heart indentation on my forehead, which was the merging of your heart and your mind. And I came home, and you know, by this point, I could hear them speak to me, you know, just walking around, you know, telepathically or what have you. And sometimes when I meditate, they would actually, you know, I have a little click in the back of my head, and then boom, I'd see their face and, you know, talk. But Father Jacoba said to me at that time, he said, you know, what would you say if I told you you just wrote that book for yourself?
That's we've got to get deeper into this. We're at the top of the hour, ladies and gentlemen, so we're about to take our next break. We have been hearing from Mr. Craig Campobasso with this remarkable story of contact from these entities, and we will certainly continue that conversation. This is the Dr. William Lester Show. I am your host, of course, and we are all over the Shadow Talk Radio Network, and we will return to this fascinating conversation after these messages.
Ancient mysteries, paranormal studies, cryptozoological sciences, demonology, extraterrestrial archaeology, temporal sciences, conspiratorial studies. These courses and more can be found at the Institute of Metaphysics. From the mysteries, knowledge. instituteofmetaphysics.com.
We are back on the Dr. William Lester Show with my special guest, Mr. Craig Campobasso, and he is taking us on a remarkable journey that he himself took with beings from elsewhere. And I guess we should see if we can find out exactly if these entities told you, Craig, where they were from. Did they, were they these kind of beings who were just kind of out there in the celestial haze, or do we know where they're from?
I like that expression, celestial haze. Well, the two very tall beings I told you about, their names are Mother Moyova and Father Jacobaba. And I have put Mother and Father before them because they feel like the mother of mothers and the father of fathers to me. And but they are from the very first world out of the gate when there became a physical reality. Their world's called Planet or Morama, Morama planet. And that is where the very first speck of light is still housed. And it is where the great I Am is the eternal flames and all of, the very high presence of God is. So
wow.
It is, I wish I could, when we're talking about downloads, I wish I could download into everybody the feeling that you get when you're in the presence of these beings, because it's just, it's like you just want to float away, It's just the incredible spiritual beauty and the charm and the actual humor that they have. So,
Well, do they? I guess a relatively simple question would be, why are they here? And but that's almost so simple that it's probably impossible to answer, because obviously people are having these very personal experiences.
Right.
But are they here for a larger purpose?
Well, it's an easy answer, because this process that happened with me has quickened me. I went through, oh my God, sped through lifetimes of spirituality in a short amount of time, just being given the spiritual tools. I had to do it myself, of course, but this is the awakening that all of these beautiful people are coming here to. Everyone is awakening like this, and what it's doing is it's quickening the consciousness, and hopefully when everyone gets into their, as everyone evolves, they pull the people up around them, and so forth, and that is how the consciousness on the planet will raise, because, my God, if you look at where we were in the 70s and where we are now, we sped through lifetimes of spirituality. And George Lucas had something to do with that too, with the Force, because a lot of people who
tell us about that,
absolutely, because a lot of people, if they don't believe in a religion or whatever their beliefs are, they believed in in the positive force and the negative force, and that's really what our dual mind is, and it's actually learning to combine the two. So that you have, so that your thinking is able to balance everything out.
I think there's actually a group or several groups that exist now who are actually and literally practicing the prescribed philosophies of the Jedi that you see played out in the films. And clearly these people are looked upon with, a little bit of scorn and a little bit of tongue in cheek, because most people look at that as, well, they're just kind of living out this fantasy that they saw in a movie. And I've commented on this with respect to Star Trek in general.
Right.
Because, you know, you can be cynical and say, oh, it's just a movie, or, oh, you know, it's just a television show. But there are themes and philosophies set forth in these shows, in these films, that are perfectly applicable to our lives. They are perfectly legitimate philosophies if you choose to embrace them. And so, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, a person should live out in the desert like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but there are some things there to be looked at. What is your take on that?
Well, I totally, I think, you know, Gene Roddenberry, when he created that, you know, I know the experience I had creating this, and really what the book is called Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial, and
Yes.
it's the lead character, his name is Turan, and he's from the Pleiades star system. But it is about the whole galactarian alignment of space peoples and planets. And so really it's the story of them, like where Star Trek is the story of us going out there. This is the story of them and what their worlds are like and what their worlds are doing in conjunction with lifting this planet up and back up into a spiritual thinking mind. So I know, I think where we had left off at the break is, you know, where I said that Father Jacobo said to me, you just wrote that. What would you say if I told you you just wrote that first book for yourself? And I said, then I've learned a lot, because really what it was a practice. And he said, now it's time to sit down and write the real book. And when I sat down to write the real book, it was like reading a book. And I'm sure, and I would get images and things that I never thought. I was sitting there saying, oh my God, that's so cool. That's never been done before. And this hasn't been done before. And my God, look at that. That's incredible. And, you know, and I'm sure somebody like Gene Roddenberry was given a download too.
You know what? I have said that to people. I've actually said that to people because, and here's why. And of course, different people get different things out of these, you know, movies and what have you.
Right.
It is inconceivable to me that the Star Wars universe, if you will, or the Star Trek universe, and all the related materials are simply the mundane product of the imagination of writers and producers and sci-fi buffs, and that all of this is just, you know, what they call colloquially speculative fiction.
Right.
Because here's why. You know, at some point in time, we will be out into deep space. You know, Star Trek is set at approximately 200 years in our future. And if we are here in 200 years exploring deep space in starships, etc., that must mean that all of the problems and all of the hang-ups and all of the petty issues that consume us currently, we are able to overcome. And that by itself makes it all worth it.
Yes. That's right. That's right. And, you know, I have always said that film is the best teaching tool for the people on the planet, and of course books. But films teach people, and they actually learn from watching films. You know, that's why, you know, when you watch something like a Star Trek and you just, you know, everyone feels, we're all made of stardust. We all know that, right? And so when we see that, it all touches us, and we know that that is not only a probability, it is definitely going to be happening in our future. And this planet will have to join with the galactarian alignment of people and planets once it is shifted over its consciousness into a spiritual mind instead of a dual mind. And and we will then, if we can't get along with each other, how are we going to get along with a bunch of beings that look completely different? And
Right.
I mean, most are human looking, but there's a lot of beings,
Clearly alien.
that look so different from us, but they are incredibly beautiful, loving souls on the inside, and you feel that when you actually see them. So it's an amazing thing for us to, we've got to take care of our business on this planet first before
Well,
we can actually go out there and actually join. And that's why they don't land. Do you know what I'm saying? You know what everybody always says, well, why don't they just land and show themselves? That's not their purpose. This is the one thing. If there's a race that comes to this planet and they look like us and they land and they say, we're here to save you. We're going to help you clean up your planet. We're going to help you do this, and we're going to help you do that, and we're going to do this, and this is going to save you, and we've got the cure for this and the cure for that. That is not their business. That's our business on this planet. When they say that, they have a hidden agenda and they're going to do something here. That's totally wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
So-
and here's another thing too. I've said this on other shows, and I think it's a viable conclusion. If you are a visitor, and you have spent any time at all observing or learning Earth history, and I don't mean you don't have to go back. You may just go back 100 years and just start there.
Yeah.
If you just study Earth history since the turn of the 20th century, here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to land your ship and open up the doors, the doors like Michael Rennie in The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Right.
And get yourself a mouthful of buckshot. That's not what you're going to do, because if you've studied our history at all, the last thing you're going to do is put yourself in a potentially vulnerable situation. And it is not complimentary, but it is consistent with our history. We shoot first and then we sort stuff out.
Right.
And so the idea that someone of a supposedly advanced civilization is just going to plop themselves down and come out and shake our hand is just nonsensical, I think. But where I wanted to get to before I said that was that there's a phrase that gets thrown around, or it has been thrown around a lot in the last, decade or so, maybe longer. But that phrase is one world government. And it has traditionally been used as a tool of generating fear and paranoia. Okay? Countries losing their sovereignty, citizens of different countries losing their rights, is the way that it is typically characterized. My take on that is this: if a one world government resulted in the loss of individual rights, then of course it would be a terrible mistake, and a tragic event. However, if those things did not come to pass, if people and nations were able to maintain their sovereignty, if you had your rights as a citizen of planet Earth, if there was one unit of exchange in terms of a monetary system, and human beings treated one another with fairness and justice was applied equally. In other words, if the world was as we all dream it could be, where's the problem with a unified Earth? Because we talk about Star Trek and we talk about Star Wars and we talk about what, the future of space. That's not going to happen until the human race is the human race, if you know what I mean.
That's right. That's right. And if that were to happen and the world was in a spiritual mind, none of those things would be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
there were about people losing rights and all of that kind of stuff, because everyone actually becomes one, and everyone realizes we are all here, we are all God, we are all experiencers of God. You're the God in me, I'm the God in you. I see you, you're in my energy field. You need assistance, I am there to help you. And vice
Exactly.
versa.
And
That's
just to
how it works.
And it's hard not to be cynical because, for example, just in recent days, you hear a speech, you hear someone giving a speech, as people in various positions are wont to do, and they're telling people, oh, you know what you better do now while you have the chance is you better buy as many guns as you can, because after a while you won't be able to get one. And that is that's a message. Is that supposed to be some kind of message of hope and empowerment? To people that, get as many, weaponize yourself to the hilt, so that you can, dig in, and it harkens back to the lunacy of the nuclear bomb drills in the 50s, as if hiding under a desk would protect you from nuclear holocaust. And so these are some of the messages that are going out to people, and messages like yours are going out also, messages of hope and inspiration. But we also have these other messages of paranoia and fear. And, I'm always afraid of who's listening, and, what it's going to turn into, where, we actually feel that it's a justifiable, it's an acceptable method of communication to tell somebody, arm yourself as much as you can. Because, we're going, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a little bit difficult to articulate.
No, I completely know what you're saying. And again, it's the two sides of the spectrum. There are the people who are spiritually awake, and there are the people who are not awake. And the ones who aren't awake they don't understand that they are a part of the God I am. And the ones that are awake, they do, and they have connected into that. And, as you live your life and you work on yourself spiritually, then the others around you say, what are you doing different? What are you doing, and this and that, and, learning meditation and, connecting and trusting and letting your intuition flow. And, the first phase of this is the psychic energy, which is the sixth sense, which is, as you know, people poo-pooed psychics many, many moons ago.
Oh, sure.
Now it's a huge awakening on the planet, and that is the very beginnings of opening up people spiritually, because they're opening up their psychic awareness. And as these waves of this and this energy that all these beings are putting in the planet, all these beautiful waves and spiritual downloads for the whole planet, everyone can then start accessing that without them even knowing they're accessing it. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the beauty of it.
Do these
right there for accessing, and you are accessing it, and you're starting to spiritually grow and change, and and people will have their these beautiful awakenings. But again, we have the other opposite of the spectrum, which is greed, and people want to hang on to stuff.
And there seems to be a growing dichotomy showing itself. You referenced the term two ends of the spectrum, and the dichotomy seems to be between those people who are looking up and onward, looking forward, trying to expand consciousness, expand all of the benevolent characteristics of humanity. Yeah. And those people who are simply trying to do, I call it just holding on. Right. and you know, the good old days. You know, why can't things be like, you know, fill in the blank? And you know, the reality is that if you're one of those people who are just trying to hold on, the tide of history is not on your side.
Right.
And you can see it, you know, all around you, just the tremendous changes. One of the things I wanted to ask you about these beings, if they communicated to you their feeling or their hope for the human race. I mean, do they feel like we will, you know, make it, if you will? Are we going to be there?
I've not gotten, you know, I will tell you my feeling in a collective from all of them is yes, we will. And this is a very special planet that sits at the edge of the universe. And there have been many others throughout, you know, this universe is gigantic. There's, you know, 7 super universes with 700,000 local universes, multidimensional. Nobody knows even the feeling of what that could even be. And imagine the amount of beings and, you know, just life and thought. And if you can think it, so it exists somewhere. You know, that's what thought is. But yes, I really, really believe that this planet is going to shift over, and I don't know how long it will take. Some planets take a long time, some are shorter than others, but these are programs done through these spiritual beings, this galactarian alignment of space peoples and planets. I just love saying that. I just think it sounds so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it should be the title of it's a sci-fi
of a book.
Yeah, dream
exactly.
come true. Yo, the
Well,
galactarian, you know.
Actually, Dr. Lester, we would call it science fact, not fiction.
Oh, of course. Of
you
course.
know what I mean? So,
and to piggyback on that, you know, think about this: how much, you know, if you go back about 100 years or so, a little bit longer, at the beginning of the science fiction genre, you know, H.G. Wells, you know, Mary Shelley, and so forth. Well, think about how much of science fiction originally today exists. You know, George Orwell and Isaac Asimov. I mean, all of these things like the internet and communication satellites and all
Big
of these
Brother.
things. Exactly. You know, a lot of people don't realize, you know, especially people who tend to kind of poo-poo science fiction, don't realize that much of the technology that they enjoy today, their cell phones and so forth, are actually kind of extrapolated aspects of science fiction. And many people who work in these technology industries will tell you that a lot of what they produce was inspired from science fiction.
Well, do you remember the very first season of Star Trek The Next Generation? Remember when LeVar Burton wore the Bluetooth in his mouth? I mean, in his ear, in his mouth, in his ear, and that was his communication device. And then they copied that, and within a few years, there was Bluetooth, and everybody had one.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and a very obvious example. Let's stop there because this is a point of conversation that I want to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the bottom of the hour. We've still got a half hour to go with Mr. Craig Campobasso, who is the author of the whimsically titled book, Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial. And we are just knee-deep in this conversation about galactic beings and different spiritual realms and life out there and what it means for humanity. This is the Dr. William Lester Show. I am your host, of course, and we are on the Shadow Talk Radio Network, and we will be right back at you. that should have taken you out to the deepest reaches of this galaxy, at least. We are back on the Shadow Talk Radio Network. This is the Dr. William Lester Show. My guest tonight is Mr. Craig Campobasso, and we have been touching all the bases, if you will. Alien life, highly evolved spiritual beings, and what it means for us on this planet as we are now almost a decade into the 21st century. I know that, like many of you, as a child, when people referenced the 21st century, I envisioned a kind of Jetsons type existence, zipping around in these air cars, visiting places like Mars and Venus on a regular basis, and just having our life kind of closely intertwined with life in outer space. We're not quite there, but I know that we are in the process, for example, of preparing a new space telescope, which is supposed to give us images of deep space, a much deeper space than we've ever seen before. The fascinating thing is that, there was a time, in recent memory, as a matter of fact, there was a time when scientists doubted whether or not there were actually planetary bodies outside of this solar system. If you use our solar system as a model and the planets, etc., they doubted whether or not other systems, planetary systems, existed. But we have, since that time, confirmed that space contains numerous planets of different sizes and varieties, and that it is a fairly common situation that star systems exist, and these stars have planets orbiting them. And so some of these planets may be Earth-like, similar to Earth. And how much more the likelihood that these planets contain life forms, intelligent life forms with a civilization or technology. These are the kind of questions which are going to be answered sooner than you know. Some scientists, some astronomers have speculated that just in this local group, in our immediate vicinity of this part of the Milky Way, that there may be tens of thousands of planets, at least in some way, shape, or form comparable to Earth. And so that opens up some tremendous possibilities. And then suddenly the idea of someone coming here from elsewhere doesn't seem far-fetched at all. When we left at the bottom of the hour, we were referencing how a lot of things in the past that were strictly science fiction that we've seen in books and on programs like Star Trek, we referenced the Bluetooth origins, are commonplace today. I know for a fact that the flip phone, the cell phone with the flip up top, was attributed directly to the communication device seen on the original Star Trek series. And, that's simply an aesthetic influence. Certainly the technical influences have been there in our advanced computer technology. One computer expert put it like this: the computer capability of the Apollo mission, the Apollo mission that sent us to the moon in 1969, had less computing ability, if you will, than one of the current cell phones, with the cameras on the phones and the camcorders on the phones and all of these various features. And that's a remarkable thing. And it makes you wonder how we ever got there. But we've come a long way in just a short period of time. So, the book is called Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial. Now, was the book presented as a work of fiction and kind of a nudge, nudge, wink, wink? How did you, put that together?
Well, it's it's hard to even explain, but you, the reader, actually sort of become part of the lead character, and you're taken on the journey, and you get to experience what one of the lead characters goes through. And but it is one of those things, depending on your spiritual evolvement, you will either say, wow, this is great science fiction, or if you're quite evolved, you'll know that a lot of it just stems from all kinds of truths and things like that. And it's an incredible spiritual odyssey. So everyone will take away from it with what they want, but I'm saying it's inspired by a true story, because part of the visitations and the things that I told you guys earlier, those are also a part of the book.
Now, I don't know to what extent you have shared your experiences with colleagues and acquaintances, family, etc. Have you had people who were skeptical and kind of looked at you with a sideways glance? What's wrong with Craig? Or have people been open? Because of course, 20 years ago, this is not something that you share with people.
Well, I'll tell you, I love sharing things with people, and I would share them with all my friends. I would have UFO parties at my house and have actual UFO researchers come with videos, and I would by like the third party, I think I was packing about 100 people in my place, and they would come in the pouring rain, and they wanted to see UFO footage and all of that, and and all of my close friends, I never not shared it with them. And some of them were a little skeptical or a little afraid of what that meant. Others weren't, and the ones that were skeptical and afraid, in the years that came, what ended up happening is they actually transformed and said, I used to think you were a little nuts. Now I just can't thank you enough. So as a matter of fact, I was, it was probably about 5 years ago, but a dear friend of mine is Viggo Mortensen, from The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yes.
Manager. And she's been on this journey with me from the very beginning. And she used to come to all the little things I had at my house, and I would go to the spiritual events at her house. And 5 years ago, somebody threw her a surprise party with all of the top agents at all the big agencies, from CAA to ICM, William Morris, etc., agents, managers, and casting directors, all who were her friends and people that she worked with. And when she saw me there, she came over and she made me stand up, and she started crying. And she said, I can't tell you guys enough, this man is the one who actually gave me my spirituality. And I started crying because I didn't know I did that. Do you know what I mean? But just in me being open and talking, you know what I mean? Because I'm not one, I don't shove things down people's throat. I just say, listen, this is my experience. If you can take something from it, you'll have your own, but, because when you see all these beautiful things, you want to share the beauty in it, So, anyway, I just thought that was fascinating. So, I'm sure there was some others that maybe I didn't know about, that, might have been a little skeptical or this or that. But, in this day and age, even Hollywood's like, well, if it's a great story, let's make it.
Let's go with it. That's
You
right.
know?
Exactly. And
They don't care if it's truth or not.
and one of the things is I often think about and even have had commentary on the show is that, of course, on television today there is a proliferation of programs and documentaries with topics of various subjects, like UFOs, paranormal topics in general, are something that you almost can't get away from it. And
it's everywhere. Yeah.
it's everywhere, exactly. And so, on the one hand, I guess a person could say, well, you know what? They know that it's hot, and it's good television, and it's gripping, and it's it's compelling, and it's compelling TV, and so we can really sell it. That's on one level, but on another level, there's just a widespread interest. Beyond the commercial aspect of it, there's a widespread interest, and that's that is if you can make an ongoing television series, for example, about UFO hunters, quote unquote, about guys who run around and investigate UFO sites. Come on,
that show is great. I love that show.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that it's a viable program, lots of folks are watching it. And again, that's something that in the past would not have been the case, but so many people have had experiences, and then people who haven't had experiences are open to the possibility of it and consider it to be a legitimate line of inquiry. And so, I think those people out there who are kind of holding on to this kind of cynical, skeptical thing, it's these people are crazy, or they're hoaxing. No. It's real. The phenomena is real. The nature of it, we can argue about or debate about, but I think at this point, to say that it's not real and that it's not happening, it's kind of like you just don't want it to be real, because it invades on our everyday life, and a lot of us are pretty sure that we understand reality. We understand what's real, and we don't like to be confronted with information that says, well, maybe we don't know what reality is.
Right. Well, you know what? Reality is the thought of the thinker. That's really what reality is. You are your own reality. Whatever you think, there you are.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's amazing, and it's the same thing. It's really getting down to, here we are working on a dual mind. We are working on, good and evil, light, dark, this and that. That's what we are. That is, and what we have to do is, as we work on ourselves spiritually, we bring this dual mind to become in harmony with it, with each other, and then that's what helps us, and that's when also we're working through our emotions, which are our learning tools. That person did that to me, and I'm going to get them, and I'm going to this, and we know if we do something bad back, that the law of cause and effect is going to hit us back. And if we just let it alone and actually just bless that person and put them on their path so that you can continue on yours, you start to raise up through your chakra system with each of these emotions. And as you reach your seventh chakra, located at the top of your head, you start bringing in cosmic spirituality, and that ignites your Christ chakras. And when I say Christ, I don't mean anything religious, right? I in a spiritual sense, because all of these beings up there, again in this galactarian alignment, are already Christ. Their brains function at 100%. they all have same divine power as Jesus did. You know, there's a living avatar on the planet, Sai Baba in India, who has full divine power, and it's been proven. You know, so so here we have these great teachers who come in to show us how to attain being this enlightened being, and in so doing, we will all raise the planet, and then the planet gets to go into the next phase and actually join with the universe and become at one with it. You know, and I just love that.
What's but we're going to tell people about getting the book and how to get it. But before we do that, what's coming up next for you, Hollywood-wise?
Well, we just finished a movie, my casting partner and I, called The Perfect Host, starring David Hyde Pierce, from Frasier. And finished another film before that called Magic Man, about a magician that stars Billy Zane and Bai Ling, who was also in Sky Captain, and Robert Davi and some other actors. And we're gearing up now for a Western, which we're so excited about, and we're going to do a drama and a comedy.
Wow! So still a lot on the plate from that end.
A lot on the plate. Yes, yes. So it's always fun doing that.
So tell everybody about Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial and how to get it and where to go and everything.
Well, at this time, you can go to my website and you can read a little bit about it, and you can see some of the artwork. I sat with an artist for 2 years to bring all the ETs and their home worlds and inside their spaceships and all of this stuff to life. She's an amazing artist. She's actually a UFO artist. You see all her stuff on all the UFO shows,
Oh, really? Okay.
All her artwork, yeah. Her name is Christine Dennett. And I think her website is Kesara, Kesara, art.com. And although on her website you won't see the stuff she did for me, but you can see all her other UFO drawings and things. Amazing lady. And so I worked with her for 2 years, and you'll see some of the artwork. I think we did about 80 various pieces. So I really wanted, when people read the book, I want them to actually experience it visually too. So we are in the process of shopping it around now to publishers. It's not available yet.
Okay.
But hopefully within the next year or so, will be up and out there.
I mean, I've just got, come on, publishers. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, do we really need, we don't need too many more tell-all books from a former athlete or a former senator, or one of these various scandalous things that we're forced to endure from these publishers. But this is one of those type of stories, that needs to get out there. So one of you big publishing houses needs to come on through here and breathe life into this thing.
Yes, absolutely. When we need a big publishing house so it can get out to the world for everybody to actually see, because I have to tell you, I can say it because even though it came out of my hand, I didn't write it. It's just the visuals and the things and the concepts and the spiritual teachings and a lot of humor, a lot of fun, and just, if you think you've seen gadgets on the Star Wars and Star Trek, you ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, this is like taking it way beyond into the cosmic realm and, and beyond, it's mind-blowing stuff. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad that it seems as though, it's easy to get junk published.
Oh, completely, yes.
You know, and you know, you have to go through this process of trying to convince these major publishers that, well, you know, not only can you sell a lot of these, but it's actually got a pretty good message in it too. So you know,
Right.
don't let that sway you. You know,
That's right. That's right.
you know, there's a good message to get out. So yeah, I mean, we definitely want to see that get picked up by a publishing house that can give it the kind of you know, global exposure. You know, but you know, and ironically, you know, maybe the fact that you're a Hollywood guy and that you have all of those various connections going back years, you know, may spark the interest of one of the major publishers.
Well, I think that would be great, and you know, this would definitely be made into a movie. So,
Exactly.
you know, big time. And I plan on doing it as a trilogy, and then you know, take it from there, either doing prequels or sequels or whatever. I mean, you know.
It's got to be good for, yeah, at least 2 films. You know, Revenge of the you know, the autobiography of an extraterrestrial's revenge. You know, you know, he returns. You know, it's like Planet of the Apes almost. You know,
Oh God, yeah, I love those Planet of the Apes movies.
You
They're
know,
my favorite. I bought them all on DVD.
yeah, I mean, and they, you know, they because originally that was based on one novel by Pierre Boulle, and then
Yeah.
I think they said, well, you know what, we sold a lot of tickets, so why don't we do Return to the Planet, you know, whatever they're called, you know, Return to the Planet of the
Yeah.
Apes, back to the Planet of the Apes, Around the Planet,
Yeah.
you know, just on and on and on. And I think they ended up doing like what, 5 or 6.
I think it was like 5 or 6 of them, yeah. And then
Yeah,
there was a remake of Tim Burton's a few years back.
Yeah, that was kind of tough, but you know, it had Charlton Heston in it, so you know.
Well, that
and,
first one, man, you just can't beat that ending. You know, that ending.
and when he
was
sees
bad.
he sees the Statue of Liberty,
yeah, and that he's been on Earth the whole time.
yeah, I mean, it's
You
like,
know, that was a great mind blow.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Craig, you know, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and sharing your story. It was phenomenal, and I know my audience will second that sentiment. It was a fascinating exploration into your personal experiences, and I bet you, I'm almost sure that there are people out there listening who may have had similar experiences and have neglected, for whatever reason, to share them. And obviously, that's a little bit of comfort to them to know that they're not alone. You know, it was just a remarkable journey. And folks, you need to go up to, you know, CraigCampobasso.com. You can certainly link. I know we had a link up on our chat room site, but you can also just go to CraigCampobasso.com. You can link to it from the show site, drwilliamlester.synthesite.com. You got no excuse not to find your way to the website and find out as much information as you can, and hopefully we can get this thing picked up by a major publisher so we can get it on everybody's bookshelf. Craig, if you don't mind, I'd like you to kind of hold the line as I close the show so that I can just give you a quick word after we're off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us tonight on the show. I want you to be sure to come back next week at 10 p.m. Eastern. That will be March the 14th, when we'll be joined by Mr. Patrick Cook, who's going to share with us information